Good morning. Thank you for joining us today for our presentation with our guest speaker, Kristen Ingebrigtsen. We're going to wait about 20 seconds for people to get logged into the webinar before we get started. So just hang on for a few seconds. Well, good morning. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Victor Valdez. I'm the program manager of the Monterey Bay Apex Accelerator. We're very fortunate today to have Kristen Ingebrigtsen, who is the Department of Defense Office of Small Business Program Component Director for the Defense Microelectronics activity, which is up in McAllen, California, a little bit northeast of Sacramento, California. And she's going to talk to you today just about their agency, the kinds of things that they procure, and the kind of activity that takes place at their facility. So with that, I'll just hand it over to Kristen. Kristen, welcome.
Thank you so much, Victor, for having me this morning, allowing me to talk a little bit about DMEA, what we do, what we procure, and then I'm going to talk about our Small Business Innovation Research, we call it SBIR, and Small Business Technology Transfer Research, or SITR, programs. And I'm going to go off camera. I just want to say hi first. So I'm going to go off camera and you can go ahead and advance the slide.
Well, there it is. Okay.
Okay, there we go. So speaking a little bit about DMEA, a quick overview. We are so much more than this, and I highly recommend you go to our website and learn more about DMEA. We're super unique. We are a Department of Defense, or DoD, laboratory, and as Victor mentioned, we're up in Sacramento, California, but it's actually the old McClellan Air Force Base, so they call it McClellan Park, and I guess it's a city in and of itself because that's what we put on our address. We operate under the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, and we're actually, DMEA is on the sustainment side of that. This is where we're unique is we actually have specialized microelectronics engineers that work for us. They are DoD employees. I'm part of the support staff, so of course you've got to have your HR and IT and everything else that goes along with supporting our mission. We work in partnership with major defense contractors and the semiconductor industry. Our folks rapidly develop advanced technology applications for the warfighter. So we do, work with all of the military services, and they provide solutions that support critical active military operations. We actually have an advanced laboratory facility and a foundry. So we're unique in that way as well, so that our folks do that work in-house. It enables our engineers to team and provide trusted, high-mix, low-volume microelectronic solutions. DMEA's research activities advance microelectronic technologies to support current and future warfighter needs. So we're pretty cool, I think. Next slide. All right. So, I'm out of order on my slides. So this is my office. I'll talk a little bit about DMEA's Office of Small Business Programs, or OSBP. As Victor mentioned, I am the component director, very lofty title, but it's according to a DoD instruction where that's our title per this DoD, they call them. I lead the effort to maximize opportunities for small businesses in our acquisitions, and with a goal of adding new entrants to the defense industrial base, which has been shrinking over the last few years. So that's what I try to do. I advocate for small businesses that contribute to national security and economic power to our nation in the area of microelectronics and related technologies. I help maximize small business opportunities through innovation and advanced technology microelectronic solutions through the Subversitor program I mentioned earlier. And here's some of the things that you can provide to me, or request for me rather, is DMEA Small Business Program Guide. Just send me an email. I'll send that to you. Our annual procurement forecast, which I just completed a couple weeks ago. We have to go through public release approval. So I just got public release. So I've got that. You can email me with your capability statement if you know what that is. If you don't, get with Victor and his folks and they can help you with one. So email that to me and I will shoot it out to DMEA stakeholders and decision makers and save it in our vendor database. Can you scroll down just a little bit, Victor? Okay, up a little bit more. Okay, call me or reach out to me. Email's the best, honestly. I do have a cell phone, obviously, but email's the best. You can also request a virtual meeting with me. And I do my darndest to try to get engineers involved, but they're super busy. So most of the time I just pass along the information to them. I have information about DME small business opportunities. And again, that goes back to our procurement forecast and then a list of the prime contractors that DMEA works with. And so I can provide the list and that speaks to subcontracting opportunities for small businesses. Next slide. All right, so DMEA's solutions and services. As I mentioned earlier, we have in-house engineering teams. I do a lot of great work in the microelectronics space, research, design, prototypes, product support. They address low volume, legacy or obsolete technologies. So they do a lot of reverse engineering because, a lot of our systems are getting old and people aren't making the microelectronics anymore to support our warfighter systems. Therefore, that's where DMEA steps in and does that for them. Let's see. We complement other DoD capabilities to deliver solutions to resolve technology gaps with our experienced engineers and the equipment and facilities that we have on site with an agile approach. Our staff are aligned, and these are the two main engineering divisions, organic engineering and radiation testing. And then you can see below all of the things that those two business units provide and perform. Next slide, please. All right. I'm just going to bring up another slide for me. Okay, so what do we buy? That's important if you're a small business, you're a contractor, and you want to work with us rather. So DMEA. Sorry, I'm getting to the slide on my slides just to make sure I don't miss any of my notes. We buy R&D and technology, engineering, and other technical consulting services. Of course, electronics, semiconductor-related device manufacturing, to support our lab and actually, our folks. We buy a lot of software maintenance and licenses. We buy, of course, laptops, desktops. We refresh those every few years. We're going through a refresh now, meaning we have to upgrade them, buy new ones. So for our lab, we need scanner, test and x-ray equipment. And then, of course, the facility that we operate out of, we need support services for the facility. And you can see those listed there. And again, not an all-inclusive list, but this is what we regularly procure or historically procure. Next slide, please. All right. So DMEA's top 10 NAICS codes. As you can see at the very top, engineering services. That is where we spend about 90% of our dollars. And that is going to large prime contractors for engineering services on a large indefinite IDIQ, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract. It's a 5-year, or actually this one's a 10-year contract. and it's got a lot of the big defense prime contractors on it. So that's where we spend a lot of our money, but that's not to say we don't support small business. A lot of the other NAICS codes you see on there, we award to small businesses and all those NAICS codes. Facility support services, which I mentioned earlier. If you, excuse me, are familiar with the 8A program, we have the facility support contract is with an 8A tribally owned company. Our security guard and patrol services there at the bottom, that is also with an 8A company. But we do award to a lot of small businesses in those other areas. There's some other NAICS codes just thrown in there, just showing that the list isn't all inclusive. Next slide. All right, so in accordance with FAR 19.201, we got to go by the FAR. It's the policy of the government to provide maximum practicable opportunities in its acquisitions to small businesses. And then I'm not going to read through them all, but all the other socioeconomic categories that are listed there. We also need to strive to provide maximum practicable opportunity to small businesses to participate as subcontractors. And we do a very good job of that, or I should say our prime contractors on that ATSP IDIQ I just mentioned, they do a phenomenal job awarding to small businesses. In fact, I think it's a 10-year contract. It's going to renew, and I'll talk a little bit about it later on, but it's going to renew in 2026. And I think they crossed, the list of primes crossed the $1 billion mark for awarding to small businesses recently. So they're doing a really good job. If you aren't familiar, Congress sets statutory federal small business procurement goals. You see them listed there. Of note, the small disadvantaged business, which includes the 8A program I previously spoke about, that just increased this year to 15%. It's been going up and up. I think it started at 5%. I couldn't tell you how many years ago, but it's been gradually going up, and I think we're capped out at 15%, I hope. So it's really climbed. And service disabled veteran-owned small business, that's also been increased from 3%. So I want to foot stomp. Can you scroll it up just a little bit, Victor, so I can see the bottom? Oh, go back. Okay, perfect. Okay, I want to foot stomp that last bullet, just because you're going to see on the next slide, you got a little sneak peek, that DMEA's goals don't reflect those statutory goals, and it's because of what we do and how much we award to that large contract I talked about. So ours are a little bit different. However, the DoD as a whole, they strive to meet those goals there that you see. Next slide. All right, so there's those numbers I'm talking about. And, so I'll just talk about FY24. We didn't meet our goal last year for small business. We met our small disadvantaged business and some of the other socioeconomic categories. And again, we set our goals very low, as you can see. But the 31.9 million we awarded to small businesses last year is nothing to sneeze at, right? So I like looking at that number rather than the percentage down below that we achieved. Next slide. Oh, in 2025, still negotiating, so I don't know what our goals will be for 2025. It's going to happen any day now. All right, so for prime contracting opportunities, just like most other agencies, DMEA posts our opportunities on sam.gov. We'll post sources sought there, RFIs when our contracting folks are doing research to see if they can set aside an opportunity, a contract for a small business. So please respond to those if you're looking on SAM, so that, if we get 2 or more small businesses, they can set it aside. So for subcontracting opportunities, I spoke of the ATSP4, that's the Advanced Technology Support Program. It's a full and open, so went to all the biggies that you see down there. Up for renewal in 2016. It's going to be about the same dollar ceiling amount there. Yeah, so there are opportunities there, and I believe I have a slide that provides the prime contractors links where you can go sign up to be a subcontractor with them. And we do have other prime contracting or subcontracting opportunities with other DMEA prime contract holders, and a lot of them are small. So there is opportunity there, and if people are interested, they can reach out and I can give them a list. Next slide. All right, there's the list of those. So when people get a copy of the slides, they can hyperlink. They can just click on those. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to go into the SBIR Sitter program. Take a little caveat here because it is an opportunity that DMEA provides for small businesses, and it is only for small businesses. It's an SBA program. They're the coordinating agency, and they make sure that all of the agencies, components, we're known as a component, DMEA, we're a component under DoD, which is an agency. So they just make sure, we're doing the right thing, and then we have to report to them so that they can feed those numbers to Congress on an annual basis. So for the program SBIR Sitter, they're both highly competitive and awards based. And this is for DMEA. Not everybody does a contract. I mentioned earlier that other agencies do grants. So you just got to go to SBIR.gov. I'm not sure if I have it on there. And find out how the agencies, the vehicles they use to award SBIR Sitter technology. So it encourages small business concerns, SPCs, to engage in federal R&D with the potential for commercialization. So we want to see the small business, start, and I'm going to talk about phases in a minute. Start at a phase 1 where they're coming up with a concept, take it to phase 2 where they're building a prototype, and then phase 3, they sell it to either the government or they can sell it commercially. So that's really the goal of the program. The Sitter program, a little different from SBIR. Only difference is that the small business has to work with a nonprofit research institution. So like a university, a college, a nonprofit in both phase 1 and phase 2. They don't have to in phase 3. And I think you can go to the next slide. All right. So requirements for the small business. And this is going to be same for Sitter 2 with just a couple of differences. So for SBIR, the company has to be a U.S. company for profit with 500 or less employees, which includes any affiliates like subsidiaries. However, when you get to phase 3, that all goes out the window. So you can be as big as you want. Yeah, as many employees as you want, although you do have to be U.S. and for profit. Independently owned and operated. The principal place of business has to be in the U.S. At least 51% ownership by U.S. citizens or lawfully admitted permanent resident aliens. And the principal investigator or the PI needs to be employed by the firm, by the SBC, more than 50% of the time during the period of performance, or what we call the POP, and provide a 10% effort minimum. Perform a minimum of 66% of the research work in phase 1 and 50% in phase 2. And I think I already mentioned, that's the place of business has to be in the U.S., but then all the work must be performed in the U.S. with some caveats. And that link down there, you can find all the eligibility criteria for SBIR at that SBA website link. Next slide. Okay, so here's Sitter. Again, very much the same. The only differences are the small business has to have a funding agreement, manage and control of the funding agreement. So they have to have a funding agreement, and the small business manages it. They have to do 40% of the work in phase 1 and 2. And then, of course, they need to work with the Research Institute. And so they have requirements as well. No size limit there. So a research institute can be a U.S. college or university, a nonprofit, or a federally funded research and development center. And you can find a list of the FFRDCs on the internet. And the work performance they have to do, the RI has to do 30% in phase 1 and 2. Next slide. All right. So specific to DMEA, all of the DoD component programs are a little different, and the services, they all fall under DoD, as well as the other civilian agencies that participate in the program. But this is specific to DMEA. We have, compared to our colleagues, our DoD colleagues, our budget is minuscule. So it's combined, the SIBR combined budget is about $5 million. And so with that small budget, it's shrinking every year. We average about 2 to 4 SIBR phase 1 and 2s per year, and 1 to 2 SITR phase 1 topics per year. We don't get enough in our SITR budget to even award a phase 2. So what we've done in the past is if we have a SITR phase 1 that we want to advance to the next phase 2, we can turn it into a SIBR and use our SIBR money, which we have done a couple times now. So DMEA participates in 2 DoD, what are called broad agency announcements. And they just changed the structure recently. I think it started last year, but definitely, or maybe it just started in 2025. So we're in fiscal year 2025, even though it's calendar year 2024. So they have a release where agencies, DoD agencies, and I'm speaking specifically of DoD, they have a release once a month. And I believe it's the first, don't quote me on this, the first Wednesday of the month. So lots of opportunities for small businesses to go, and you'll see the website here later on, go and do some research about topics that DoD components and the services are releasing. And other agencies like the Air Force, they have a huge budget, and they release quite often and quite a few topics. DMEA, we just don't have the budget or the bandwidth or the manpower to do more than what we do. So we do 2 a year. First one, which we actually are in right now. Are we in this one now? Yeah, we are. I think it's out there right now in the open phase, as we call it. So if you're interested, again, you'll see the website when we get further down. Go to the website and check it out and submit your proposal. And I forget when those are due, but you'll find that the schedule there as well. So as of 2023, and due to the SIBR, I can't think of the word right now, reenactment, I'm just going to use that word. SIBR was going to go away. So had to fight in Congress to get them and to approve the program for another 3 years. So it's actually going to sunset again here pretty soon. We had agencies had to do certain things so that we could continue with the program. One of the things is all agencies have to provide an open topic, which DMEA was not doing before. So you can read there the requirements for the open topic. DMEA, what we're looking for in the topics that you'll see out there, they're real specific, obviously, to microelectronics and the semiconductor field. And we're going to prioritize our topics to topics that lead to manufacturing opportunities at DMEA, because our engineers, and they're the ones that write the topics. What they're doing is they're putting out a topic that provides a solution to an issue they might have. So that's what you're going to see coming out of DMEA for our SIBR and SITR topics. Next slide. All right, I mentioned the phases. Phase 1, it's the product is a feasibility study, so like a white paper, and these numbers here, the contract award numbers, are specific to DMEA. Every agency does something a little bit different, but the SBA sets a cap on it. So for DMEA, for phase 1, we award up to $200K for conventional, which has a 6-month period of performance. And then for the open topic, the required open topic, we cut all of that in half. So it's $100,000 and 3-month pop. And that's just to get something out there quick and dirty. So we'll see more proposals come in for those versus the conventional. So for phase 2, the product there, final product is a prototype. And the goal is obviously to further advance what was done in phase 1. Only phase 1 awardees are invited to submit a proposal. So you have to have already been awarded a DMEA phase 1 contract to be able to submit a proposal for phase 2. And the numbers increase significantly there for the award amount up to 1.34 mil with a 2-year period of performance. And that's the same for both conventional and open topics for SBIR and SITR. Next slide. All right, so we participate, DMEA participates in another couple of phase 2 programs. The first one there, direct to phase 2, which is a pilot program, but it's been around forever, but they just haven't set it in stone yet. But I imagine they will somewhere down the road. But the goal of that is to attract firms with innovative solutions to participate in the SBIR program when that feasibility study, the feasibility work has been done outside of the SBIR program, so without SBIR money, and you're ready to go to that prototype phase. A firm can also select a topic from a component that allows for a direct to phase 2 proposal submission. Actually, I don't even know what that means. I'm going to remove that sometime in the future because that doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, so again, phase 1 milestones have to be completed outside of the SBIR program. You can't use SBIR money. And contract award is the same as the phase 2 from the previous page, 1.34 mil and a 24-month POP. A sequential phase 2 is a follow-on to an initial phase 2. So it's a second phase 2 to continue work that's being done in phase 2. And again, the contract award amount is the same. Next slide. Okay, phase 3, the goal, this is the goal of the program. It's for the SBC, the small business concern, to pursue commercialization from what they've already done in phase 1 and 2. Phase 3 is not funded by SBIR SITR funds. So it's just, it can be a regular contract. Or you could get an investor to help fund the phase 3. And it is a sole source, so a direct contract. That's the cool thing about phase 3. So if you're a phase 2 awardee and somebody wants to pursue a phase 3 with you, it goes right to that small business concern. Nobody else competes. And then that last bullet, it may involve follow-on R&D or production contracts for processes or services intended for use by the U.S. government. Next slide. All right, so here's a list just to give you an idea of some of DMEA's past topics from 23 and 24. And I only put ones on here that went to phase 2 or were direct to phase 2s. So you can see that, it's something that DMEA really wanted. So phase 1, proved in their feasibility study that, hey, this is a great idea. So we wanted them to take it to phase 2. There's that website I talked about. And go to that DoD-SBIR-SITR.mil to get a complete list of not only our current and past topics, but all of our DoD component and service colleagues. Next slide. All right, so the SBIR SITR program submission process, visit SBIR SITR, that website again, visit there. It's what's known as the Defense SBIR SITR Innovation Portal, or DSIP. Search for topics, current topics, and active BAAs, because you'll go there and you'll see some archived ones, but go to the active ones. There's training there, additional information, lots of good stuff. So if you're interested in a current topic, then you got to register in that DSIP system. It's free. And when you register there and you're interested, you can actually ask questions of the topic authors directly in what we call pre-release and into the open period. So yeah, if you have any questions that, you need clarification on the topic, you're allowed to do that up into a certain period. I think up until proposal submission. Proposals must be submitted in DSIP at the before the end of the open period, which is obvious, right? The submission with no closers, you got to have it in. Next slide. I think, is that a duplicate? Next slide. That looks like a duplicate. All right. I'm not going to go over every one of these, but if you're interested, this is what you need to submit in your proposal. Again, this is pretty standard for all DoD. I can't say it's specific to DMEA, but you've got 7 volumes that you have to submit, and the system DSIP. It used to be. No, I wouldn't call it optional. That volume 7, that was a result of the CyberSitter renewal back in 23. We had to come up with some way to identify if the firms had foreign affiliations. So they have this disclosure form now, but it used to be that you had to download it and then upload it. Now it's just you go and you can't miss it. Let's put it that way. So they built that into the system, which is really nice. Next slide. Proposal evaluation, that is what the topic authors are looking at. They call them TPOCs as well, technical point of contact. Oh, there it is, and it's 22. In accordance with the CyberSitter Extension Act. I couldn't think of that word of 22. One of the things we have to do, open topic I mentioned, and then we must perform a risk-based due diligence review to assess security risks as they relate to FOCI, which is foreign ownership, control, or influence. So it's added some time onto our schedule, but we're doing that for every small business concern that submits a proposal. And then if you want to learn more about that, there's some training there. Next slide. Selection. Okay, so proposing firms, and these are statutory dates, must be notified if they're selected or not within 90 days of the closing date of the solicitation, the BAA. Unsuccessful offerers can ask for a debrief within 3 business days, and then the award, again, a statutory date here, must be made within 180 days of the closing date of the solicitation. Next slide. Okay, we're going to get off CyberSitter and go back into this is basically marketing to the feds 101. Okay, but with a DMEA flavor here, so that I'm directing you to our websites. But first thing you got to do, determine if you're a good fit for the agency. Go to their website. There's our website. I mentioned that at the beginning. Go there and learn some more about DMEA. And if you're not a good fit, don't waste your time, right? You can look at past awards that DMEA has made or any other agency in those websites there. DMEA's code, if you're in SAM contract data reports, is 9771, although there's only one DMEA, so you could just type in DMEA in the keywords and we'll come up. Current opportunities, I mentioned earlier, we post them on sam.gov. If you're interested in our annual procurement forecast handout, please reach out to me. So, ask yourself after you've done this research, do you have government contracting experience? Not always necessary, but it does help. And it doesn't have to be federal. It could be state, local, even private. Does your company have adequate cash flow, inventory, depending on what the contract is, working capital, and if you're in the construction field, bonding? If you answer yes, then next slide. Then you're going to take the next step, and this is where the Apex Accelerator, I almost called you guys PTAC. Apex Accelerator comes in. They can help you do this. You're going to, I kind of put them in this order because I think before you get into SAM and register, go to that website there and find out what your North American Industry Classification System codes are. So those are, they're called NAICS codes. So you can go into the census.gov website and type in some keywords regarding what your company does, and it will spit out NAICS codes. You're going to pick a primary and then select as many others as you are capable of performing on. And then after you get that list, you have that in hand, go register in SAM. You'll get a unique entity ID. Used to be the DUNS number we used, but they've changed it to the unique entity ID. And then you're going to, when you're in there, oh, actually, this may have changed, so don't quote me on this. It used to be that you could register at SBA's Dynamic Small Business Search when you're in SAM, but I've been told that there's a glitch in the system, so I'm not sure if that's functioning right now. So don't quote me on that, but I bet that Apex can help you. I mentioned, get certified. So go to the SBA's website and look at all of their different certification programs, government contracting programs, and see if you qualify for any, and register. And you have to do it through the SBA. They're all formal certifications now, with the exception of small disadvantaged business. See if your company meets the criteria, and it's actually based on the majority owner or owners of the company. And if you qualify, super, super important to agencies, because we have an SDB goal that I talked about earlier. Self-certify in sam.gov as an SDB. It helps you, it helps us. But yeah, super important. And I wouldn't say a lot of people, but people don't know that you have to take that extra step in sam.gov to check the box. That's the only one you can self-certify as. SBA does all the other ones now. They say accept government purchase cards, credit card, right? Hopefully most everybody does that these days. And I say that because, and I'm sure the number's gone up since I've been doing these presentations, but the government uses their credit card to purchase items mostly under 10,000, and then there's some other thresholds, but they spend billions with the B. I did have an exact number, but I forgot. So billions with the B every year using their government purchase card. So make sure that you can accept a government purchase card. Okay, so market your business, obviously by developing quality marketing materials, that SBA profile I talked about that I'm not sure how you get in there now, if it's through SAM or there's another way. Capability statement I mentioned earlier, get some help from the Apex, and when you get that done, go ahead and send it to me. And please, 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 and I've noticed a trend that a lot of small businesses aren't putting their NAICS codes, their UEI, any identifiers on there. So please put those on, because I'm going to take that information and go look you up in different systems. Include past performance. There's a slew of things to include, but please include some identifying federal information on your capability statement. Have some business cards when you go to events. And what I've been doing is I made a little scan of my business card, a QR scan. So QR code rather. So I use that, so I'm not carrying a bunch of paper around. Then of course have a quality website, no broken links, that kind of thing. Next slide. Okay, so marketing your small business, build relationships, and this is specific to DoD, but any other agency, same thing. Just go find them on the web. That's the DoD's website for the small business office. Participate in procurement-related events. Again, that's the DoD's calendar. Most other agencies have a calendar of events on their website. So, find your target market based on that research you did earlier. See who buys what you sell, and then go to their websites and find out where they're going to be. And find out how they do business too, because we all do it different, unfortunately. All right, so look for contracting opportunities. I went over this. So you're going to do that on sam.gov. Respond to source of SOT. I went over that. That's another foot stomper that's really important, so that we can set those aside for small businesses if we get 2 or more qualified small businesses. There's some web links there for or some information about subcontracting to federal primes. SBA has a link subnet where some prime contractors post opportunities. And then other large and even small defense contractors or government contractors have either a SBLO, they call it, a small business liaison officer, or a diversity manager. So go find out who that person is. They would be my counterpart in the private sector, and then you're going to market to them. And then sign up. A lot of them have vendor registrations, supplier vendor registrations on their website. So make sure you sign up if you want to be a subcontractor. Next slide. There's some resources for you. Got the Apex Accelerator there. SBA, SBDC, I think we still have Roger on. And those are the national websites, if you will. So I believe when you go to them, you can drill down by putting in the zip code. Let's see. Yeah, and everything on there with the exception of Apex is what the SBA calls a resource partner. The Apex recently, what was it, Victor? Last year, year before, DOD took over the Apex management of the Apex, and so DOD OSBP, as a matter of fact, partially funds them, and then they get other grant money, I believe, right, Victor? That's the same for a lot of these resource partners too.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Things haven't changed since I worked with the SBA. All right, next slide. All right, so there's QR scans for our website, for our small business program guide, the SBA web pages down there, which gives you basically everything I just told you, and then email addresses and whatnot. And that's my direct email. When you go to the website, it gives you just an email box for the small business office. And then Tian Deng is our Subversitor program manager, and that's his direct email. Next slide. And with that, do we have any questions?
Yes, go ahead and just type your questions in the chat, and then we'll ask Kristen. And while we're waiting for that, I just kind of want to make a couple of comments related to the presentation. One of the things that oftentimes a lot of small business overlooked is that there are great opportunities for you being a subcontractor to a prime contractor. So it's really important that you kind of understand where you are in the supply chain. And it's absolutely fine to be a direct prime contractor to the federal government, or you can be making a ton of money as well, being a subcontractor to a prime. So take advantage of the links that Kristen provided where you can market yourself to prime contractors who are actually looking for subcontractors to fulfill the requirements they have with the federal government. The other thing that you mentioned also is the fact that, some of the services that they procure right now are procured through 8A companies. And since they're procured through 8A companies, those contract opportunities will stay with 8A companies. And she particularly mentioned, facility maintenance and security. So if you're in those types of businesses and you're not 8A, really it's not worth you trying to get a contract for that kind of work unless you can obtain an 8A certification for your business.
Right. I'm going to mention one other opportunity we have coming up. So those 8A contracts aren't going to renew for about 4 years. Well, actually, no, the security will renew in a couple of years. The facilities maintenance won't renew until 28, I want to say, because we just awarded at the end of last fiscal year. But we do have an opportunity coming up, and it's on our forecast. So we're renewing our IT support contract, services support contract. And the renewal date, I believe, is in May, like May 31st. So you're going to start seeing that DMEA put information out on sam.gov, doing their research, their market research. And I'm trying to push for an industry day, but we'll see how that goes.
All right, we have a question here. Let's see if I can expand this.
Let's see. I think Subversitor required percentage of work seem complex. Is there a way that way to handle this that will be accepted? Rhonda, I guess I don't understand what you mean.
Excuse me, that's my question, Christian.
Yeah.
Seems like when my clients look at SIBR and SITR programs, besides the difficulty of finding a PI, if they're not one themselves, is they don't know how to handle that percentage of work. Like, I need to have this guy on for 50%, and then they have to perform 40% on this and 10% there. It's very confusing to them. Do you guys have any kind of method to help with that? Because it seems to be a deterrent for entering the program.
So, I'll just put this out there. It would be like any other government contract where primes are required to perform a percentage of the work, and they're going to demonstrate that in their proposal, right? For construction, it's 15%. For the trades, it's 25%. And then for services, it's 50%. So the prime has to perform that. So it's likened to that, but they just have to demonstrate it in their proposal. So I'm looking at SITR right now. I just backed up my slides. So the PI, that's the principal investigator. I mean, they have to be employed and do at least 10% of the work. They just have to demonstrate that in their proposal. Really, what else can I say? Yeah, it does seem complex, but it's just like any other government contract, if you will, that you have to do self-performance on a certain portion of the work, and you typically demonstrate that in your proposal. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that does help a little bit. Real quick, another question. One of your slides mentioned the getting your UEI number. Don't they need their case code as well? Go through the whole SAM process?
Repeat that. I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Don't they need their cage code as well as their UEI, going through the whole
So the cage code is, provided once you go, get your SAM registration. And what I tell folks is, so for speaking about putting it on marketing materials, the cage code is fine because I can find you with the cage. One thing I can't do with the cage, though, it's an extra step for me, is I can't go to FPDS and put in a cage and find a company. So I have to go to SAM or the dynamic small business search with the cage code and then find the UEI. So that's kind of why I like both of them. I mean, you want to, when you're marketing to an agency, you want to save them time, right? So easiest just to put it on there, both of them.
Thank you. Appreciate the answer.
Okay, well, I'm not seeing any more questions, so thank you very much, Kristen. It's very informative, and please, everybody, take advantage of this. We'll be sending you a copy of Kristen's presentation, so that way you'll have all those links that she provided in her presentation. But excellent job, and thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure. I got to go breathe somewhere. It's all getting stuffy. Have a good one, everybody.
Righty.
Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Bye.